What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. My God, this tie is a little tight. I wanted to get dressed up for this video because we're going to be talking about something very serious in this video. Please, if you're laughing right now, stop. I feel really sharp wearing this suit right here. And if you're wondering about this suit, I do have a new clothing sponsor right now. It is the thrift store. That's where this suit actually came from. This was a $30 suit. And it's all about how it makes you feel. Doesn't matter the cost at all. Again, you know, a $30 suit, this thing looks pretty damn good on me. I feel like I look like some sort of a news correspondent, or I'm dressing up for a funeral. But again, like I said, this is a very serious video, and with that, you know, I kind of wanted to dress a little sharp for this. In this video, what I want to talk to you about is something that I feel absolutely 100% serious about, and that is how prison saved my life. Now, I don't want this to sound generic or cliche, but you know, for some, especially for guys like me, it would seem that prison just might be the very last hope that we have when it comes to actually trying to figure it out for ourselves, get ourselves together, and figure out a way to get our lives on the right track so that we can finally amount to something. And for me especially, and I'm sure there's others out there who can relate to this as well, you know, I tend to not really get it or learn unless I take the absolute worst possible road that there is. And the only fortunate thing that I can say about that is, thankfully, it was only prison and not something worse like so many of my close friends have experienced: death. And with the fact that I've been locked up more times than I can remember, and I've been to prison twice, I know there's people out there who are probably wondering, like, how can I say with confidence that this last time was just that? And you know, the simplest way that I can put it is, at some point in life, you've got to reach a point where enough is enough. And no matter what it is, whether it's drugs and addiction, whether it's depression, whether it's being in an abusive relationship, or like me, constantly messing up and spending most of your life stuck inside of that revolving door known as the judicial system. And with that, I know what I'm about to say next is going to sound absolutely crazy, but I'm glad I went to prison, because legitimately, prison saved my life. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how and why I feel like it did. The first reason why I feel like prison saved my life, and also why I'm glad I went to prison, is because if I had not been arrested on December 20th of 2008 for that long list of nonviolent drug offenses, there's a very good chance I could have been arrested for something much worse a little later down the line. I mean, with the type of life that I was living and the lifestyle that I was wrapped up in, thinking that I was this thug life type of dude out there ripping and running and all up in the streets trying to get money and carrying a gun with me all the time, I'm sure it doesn't take much to imagine that this is something that legitimately could have happened. So even though on December 20th of 2008, when I was arrested for that long list of nonviolent drug offenses, and how I was feeling like my life was pretty much over at that point, somewhere along the line, I began to realize, well, you know, it could have been a hell of a lot worse than just all of these charges that I'm already facing. At least they're nonviolent, for God's sakes. At least I never used that damn gun. And you know, even during that time, as I'm feeling like life is absolutely over and having no idea that I was about to go through the darkest and lowest period of my life, no matter how bad things seem to be, you always have to try to find some sort of hope, something to cling on to, a life preserver. And I can legitimately say that it was at that point where I found that something to hope for, to cling on to, which would be creating art while I was locked up. As silly and crazy as that sounds, it would be having that art and that hope in my life where things would actually begin to very, very slowly, and I can't emphasize slowly enough, but slowly, things would begin to improve. And again, had I not been arrested on December 20th of 2008, 5 days before Christmas, who knows what I could have potentially been arrested for later on down the line. And you know, that's some really crazy shit to think about. The second reason why I feel like prison saved my life, and also why I'm glad I went to prison, is because just like number one, had I not been arrested on December 20th of 2008, legitimately, I could be dead right now. With the type of lifestyle that I was living out there, it is no stretch of the imagination to think that possibly something like my demise could have came had I not been arrested when I was. And you know, as I think about that, I think about all of the friends I've known who are dead now. How precious life is and how quickly it could be taken away from us no matter what. No matter what it is that we're into, what it is that we're doing, no matter how good we're doing, no matter how bad we're doing. And obviously, if we're out there doing bad, then our chances of survival are pretty much astronomically lower. And you know, I think it's this reason right here that absolutely inspired the motto that I say at the end of every video. Enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. And you know, one other thing that I want to throw in with this is how usually when you're involved in a certain type of a lifestyle, whether you're out there committing crime, getting money, or getting high, people will tend to tell you how there's usually only two outcomes from any of those type of scenarios. You're either going to end up in the grave or in prison. And you know, it's that line of thinking right there that brings me to the third reason why I'm glad I went to prison. And that is that I truly feel like prison helped me with my addiction. Because you see, my addiction history isn't one that I think is normal. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe there's people who can relate when I say this. But I went through periods of my life where I didn't do drugs. And then I also went through periods of my life where I did. In fact, now that I'm hearing myself say this, I mean, that sounds like any kind of a drug addiction. But you know, when you deal with addiction, it is not the easiest thing to get away from. And in fact, the only times in my life I ever was able to stay clean is when I was locked up. However, I would come home from jail or prison after the very first time. I mean, again, I've been to prison twice. And at some point, I would end up getting back into the drugs and dealing with addiction. And you know, the crazy thing to think about is I can remember many times while locked up how one of my biggest fears was to come home and get back involved with drugs. And even with that being my biggest fear, and as crazy as it sounds, I would end up getting released and at some point end up getting wrapped up right back in that same type of a lifestyle. But again, just like I said at the beginning of this video, at some point in your life, you have got to reach a point where enough is enough. Because if you don't reach that point for yourself, then again, there's only two options: the grave or prison. And for old Joe personally, I certainly reached that enough is enough point in my life when I was sentenced to 7 years in prison for these nonviolent drug offenses that I just served this time for almost 2 years ago now. And you know, that's kind of crazy to think that I've been home from prison now for almost 2 years. It's been 2 years since I was released after doing all of that time, and I've still been able to maintain my sobriety throughout that time. Though I did go through a short period of time about 6 months ago where I began to drink pretty heavily, but I quickly nipped that in the bud because I absolutely refused to do anything and put myself in any type of a compromising position that would allow me to jeopardize everything that I have worked so hard to obtain at this point in my life. But as far as drugs are concerned, drugs haven't been a part of my life since before I went to prison. It has been almost 9 years since I have done, touched, or even been around any sort of drugs. And you know, that is an absolutely amazing feeling. And it's also something that I feel wouldn't have been possible if I didn't spend 7 years of my damn life locked up. And you know, for others who might battle and deal with addiction, hopefully you don't need to spend 7 years of your life locked up for you to realize you don't need that shit in your life. I hope to God that anybody watching this video who might be dealing with addiction is a much stronger person than I am and can actually leave all of that alone without having to lose as much of your life as I've lost of mine. The fourth reason why I feel like prison saved my life, I can't even emphasize enough how much of an eye-opening experience this last prison sentence that I served actually was. In fact, I try to do so almost every single day here on After Prison Show through all of the crazy prison stories that I tell here. But even with all of those, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of just how much of a eye-opening situation being locked up for almost a decade of your life can actually be. Words can't even possibly describe the raw emotion of being locked up and confined and completely alone, cut off and cast away from society, having having every single friend and family member that you've ever known completely turn their back away from you because you just can't seem to get it right, or either because you're going to be locked up for a really long time. Whether it was going through the lowest point of my life feeling like I wanted to end myself, whether it was watching grown men cry, die, get beaten and stomped out, or even going through that type of stuff myself, dealing with guards who will treat you worse than an animal, worse than a dog, like you're not even a person, and there not being a damn thing that you can do about it. I can't tell you how many times I was damn near at my breaking point because I was in a situation that was completely beyond my control and I damn near couldn't even handle that. In fact, I would see other prisoners who couldn't handle it themselves and would actually end up taking their own lives. And to be in an environment that not only tests your physical, but also your mental strength every single day, that will cause you to probably end up with lifetime mental issues, PTSD, anxiety, you can bet your ass that prison is definitely an eye-opening experience, especially if you gotta serve a pretty lengthy amount of time there. And you know, it's me mentioning all of this about just how much of an eye-opening experience prison is that makes it really crazy for me to say that I'm happy I went to prison. But I am a firm believer that sometimes in life you have got to go through the absolute worst that life can possibly throw at you before you can actually see anything better. And this doesn't apply to everybody. It only applies to people who are pretty much just like me. But let's move on to some positive things now. And in fact, number 5, the 5th reason why I feel prison saved my life, and I'm also happy that I went to prison, is because while I was there, I got my damn GED. And had I never been locked up on December 20th of 2008, well shit, I might have ended up getting locked up for something a lot worse, or I could be dead now, or I could still be dealing with addiction, or I could still, at 34 years old, not have my damn high school diploma. I mean, my GED. That old good enough diploma. And you know, to be honest with you, it was only shortly after I was first arrested that I actually was able to obtain my GED. I got my GED while I was still waiting on my trial. And one of the things that I will never forget about obtaining that good old good enough diploma is while I was going through the class and then taking and passing the test, all parts of the test I passed the first damn time. You know, old Joe's kind of a smart guy. But I will never forget thinking after passing all parts of that test, damn, you know, this really wasn't that damn difficult. And you know, it's pretty damn sad to think that it took me all the way up until I think like 25 or 26. And also while being locked up facing football numbers from all of these nonviolent drug offenses to actually take the time to try to get my damn GED. But on a more positive note, at least I got that damn diploma. And you know, it's crazy also because I can remember after coming home and trying to fill out job applications, you would get to the part of the application that asks you about your school history, and it says if you went to high school and you got your high school diploma, put your high school, or if you've got a GED, go ahead and put where you got your GED at. And I would always put GED, I got that, got it while I was locked up. And you know, I'm still wondering why some of those employers never called me back. I'm pretty sure they were able to overlook where I obtained my GED at, but they probably weren't able to overlook why it was that I was there obtaining my GED. Number 6 on this list of why I'm glad I went to prison is because had I not done so, I probably never would have realized my full potential and all of the dreams and goals that I could actually set for myself. Again, you know, while living that thug life out in the streets, ripping and running lifestyle, you're not really thinking about what your full potential really is. In fact, during that time in my life, I don't even want to think back to what I was thinking about. Because to be honest with you, I probably wasn't thinking about much of anything at all. But you know, when you are locked up with almost a decade of time to serve, it definitely gives you a lot of time to do some thinking, to do some reflecting and looking. I don't know what the terminology for that is, but it was while I had all of that time to do so that I realized, you know, old Joe, you really got some ideas, man. I mean, who knows? Maybe you could come home and be like a news correspondent anchor. But I can remember how on every single day that I was locked up, minus like the first year of that time, because again, that was the darkest and lowest point of my life. But every day after I finally started to get out of that funk and realize that if I was gonna do anything better with my life and I was gonna survive all of this time that I had to serve, I really needed to try and develop some sort of a plan. And while trying to develop that plan, I came up with quite a few dreams and goals and things that I hope to achieve not only after I was released after serving all of that damn time, but goals that I hope to reach while doing so. In fact, every single day I would write down exactly what I hope to accomplish for that day. Today, we're gonna write some blog posts, we're gonna work out, we're gonna draw some cartoons. I got some cartoon ideas about Peaches and Punk Tattoo Guy, and especially Cherry. And it would be me being able to check off those things from those daily goals that I was setting for myself that gave me just that much more of a little bit of an air of accomplishment. And it was being able to have those little baby accomplishments that started to kind of get the momentum building behind that sand pebble that I was rolling down that mountain that hopefully by the time it reached the bottom would be a boulder able to conquer and blow right through any type of obstacles that stood in my way. There's one last reason why I feel like prison saved my life and also why I'm glad I went to prison. And that is absolutely and foremost and most importantly, AfterPrisonShow. Because it was while I was locked up that I was able to think of and create the idea behind what would ultimately become this great thing that I have been able to start since being released and have been blessed with the opportunity to have all of you become a part of. And you know, I often think to myself, what would my life be like without AfterPrisonShow? Where would I be? What would I be doing? And honestly, I have no idea. All I can say is that after serving 7 years in prison and all of the other time that I have served throughout my life, AfterPrisonShow is the greatest thing that came from all of that. And what we're able to do here on a daily basis to reach so many people, to be blessed to have so many people be a part of this, and to be able to at least try to inspire and motivate and entertain all of you out there who take the time to rock with this channel. I mean, it truly makes me feel like all of that time that I served in prison was actually worth it. You may not be able to relate exactly to everything that I mentioned in this video, but I do hope there's a chance that you were able to relate to or latch onto at least some of the things that I did mention and talk about here today. I wanted to create this video to really give you more of an insight into my mentality about how I feel about all of this time that I spent locked up. But more so, I wanted to make this video because I felt like it could really do some good. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about it. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace! Cody, take me up to the news station. I want to see if I can get a job as a TV anchor. Forget reporter. I want to be an anchor. Think we got a chance?
Good.
Let's go. Oh, shit, I got to put some pants on.